back. This is episode 2 of season 2. It is gosh, I don't even know what day it is that y'all will be listening to this. It's still February. Hopefully,
one of the ender weeks of the month.
Hopefully you had a good Valentine's Day. How has your week been, Lacey? What have you done this week?
It's been good so far. February's been a little bit of a more stressful travel month for me. I'm traveling a lot with my job, with trying to see our other niece, and just trying to keep up with life. But I look at it as I am blessed that I get to do that. I'm not stuck behind a desk. I get to talk to some of my clients, and my customers are the coolest people I've ever met. I get to know stories about them that you don't know stuff like that until you get deeper in with your clients, and my clients are just the coolest people. So I've had a pretty good month. It's been Valentine's Day was just me and my lonesome, but like most of us, I actually kind of enjoyed it. PJs and food and TV. I was all right for that. What did you and Zach do? Zach's her husband, for those that are new.
Yeah, I forget that we might have some new people tuning in.
Holly's married with a beautiful baby girl.
Yes, I'm married to Zach. He is a firefighter paramedic. So, when you have a kid, you don't get to go out a whole lot. You sort of just hope they go to bed early, and then you order food and have a movie night in your room. That's the extent of our
that quality time is
it's
even
awesome.
More appreciated.
Yeah, like I was thinking about that. I was like, man, even if you can't do extravagant weekly date nights with your spouse, have like a date night in, put the kids to bed, and have a fire pit in the backyard when they all go to sleep, or have a movie night in your room. Or we did this recently. We drove to the movie theater, got popcorn, but then took it home and we had movies at that.
The movie theater popcorn is pretty elite. You can't overeat that.
Terrible for you,
especially
but
when you add that,
it was really good.
What's that orange powder stuff?
I don't want to know.
I think it's fantastic. I mean, I haven't had it in so long. I can't even remember the last time I went to a movie, to be honest. But that was...
See, I don't like that stuff.
We had to get our own jumbo bucket because we were all... My sister, or Holly, Logan, and I, our brother, my twin brother... we would all get our own big old bucket of popcorn.
I will smash that before the previews are over.
We would all be like little pigs in our troughs.
Let us know, y'all. Do you put the weird cheesy popcorn powder or butter? Like, what do you put on it? Or do you just leave it alone? Because I'm going to leave it alone. Like, don't put anything on my popcorn.
It's the orange dusty powder.
It's like plastic.
It's like, the stuff that basically makes your tummy just absolute gurgle.
Yeah, for us lactose intolerant people.
But it's so worth it. I mean, later during the movie, you're like, oh man. But
yeah, so I mean, I don't share popcorn. Sorry, like that's my bucket.
Yeah. Well, you have. So let's see. We're towards the end of February, but in March we have a very special month of March.
Ah, yes, my daughter is turning 1 in March. So that's exciting. She's my only kid, first kid. Yeah, I'm pumped. I'm already planning her party. And if you're watching, I've got a Winnie the Pooh hoodie on here, and that is because of her. That is her thing.
A Pooh girl.
She loves Winnie the Pooh. The only reason I started letting her watch it was because I had read that you should let your kids watch low stimulating shows. Otherwise, it's like crack to their brain. And one of the suggestions was the 1970s Winnie the Pooh. And so,
isn't that crazy how our technology, as expansive as it is, it's actually harmful.
Yeah, it's like a drug to their little brains. So I don't do the cocoa melon bluey stuff.
So we're excited for March for Miss Jessie Bug, and then hopefully we've got some more episodes coming for you in March, some good topics. But today we're going to get into a little bit more of what some people don't want to, and they tend to kick to the back burner, or they say it's just so hard.
No, it is hard.
It is. But we're going to talk today about loving people even when you don't want to. And
loving people you don't want to love.
Yeah, I think when we break this down, I want to do it more so in terms of our personal experiences with loving somebody we didn't want to love. Or not didn't want to love, but they were difficult to love. And it's hard. But then also in some way, how did God, or how did you to some degree get a wake up call and you were like, oh, this is how I fix it, or this was let's just dive into it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll start with you. What is a time where you had to try to love?
A time. I love people, and I also despise people. There's no in between. It's so hard for me, and we know this.
I'm easily annoyed by
I
people.
have my people, and God's teaching me that I cannot just have my people. He needs me as much as, you know, you can be a disciple to people, of course. But I'm a very much, when I have my girls and I have my group of people, my Bible study girls, and my family, that's it. I don't mix.
My inner circle is tiny.
But I think this is one thing, especially in my later 20s, God's teaching me about who's going to come with me on my journey and who's not. But doing it in a way that's not like, oh, you're out of my life, goodbye. It's more of a, I wish you well, I'll pray for you, but I need to continue with my life.
And y'all may be wondering, you know, why do you have to love people you don't want to? Well, simply because we call ourselves Christian, which means we want to be Christ-like. And Christ called us to love our enemies. So that's why.
He didn't say picking up your cross and following me was going to be easy.
No.
He said it's going to change you and it's going to transform your way of thinking. And that's not fun all the time.
If y'all are new here, we said in episode 1 of this season that we're now filming at my house, and I have 2 dogs who have no clue what personal space is. So if you can see us, Judge is wreaking havoc on our little studio here.
We'll make little bloopers about this. And this is Judge. He is the German short-haired pointer. Yes. He's the most mischievous, sniffing around, wants to say hi. Chief is on the floor right now. Chief's asleep.
He's good.
He's chill. He's tired.
Judge thinks the world revolves around him.
But Judge over here, if you look at the video, if you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see his head is now part of our
he's my true firstborn. So he was my only baby for a long time before I was married. So
he just wants to be involved. That's all.
Yeah, we're just hoping he doesn't, tear anything down.
But again, you guys are probably sitting there with your pets and your fur babies and your human babies. So
exactly.
But my story, we won't go too off topic, but I think I'll start off with this. In my lifetime, there have been many times that I've made mistakes. I've seen others make mistakes. We are in an imperfect world trying to be perfect, which will never happen. Mm-hmm. But I think there were times when I wish people would have forgiven me for things that I did, or I wish that certain things that I did that hurt people, or it might have just come off the wrong way. I wish I could have taken it back. But you see, the thing is, even if they forgave me or not, whatever their story, I wanted them to not hate me. I was all about getting somebody to like me. I want them to like me. Because of that breeds people pleasing. So as an adult now and having to isolate and really focus on the Word of God, He has now been telling me, that's not your job though. He's saying, you're trying to take my role when all I've asked you to do is pray for these people. And I remember I was driving one day, there was this particular fella that was on my mind, and he was pissing me off because he's just...
As they do sometimes.
I mean, especially when you're a single girl, y'all. I am not married. I do not have kids. I have a fur baby who is my world. But I'm still in the dating scene, and if you watch season 1, one of our episodes, we talk about dating horror stories. If you've been a true and loyal fan, or if you're new here, it's a jungle out there, and if you're in the dating world, you already know what I'm talking about.
I'm going to quote our cousin. She said the dating pool is filled with pee.
Yeah, so it's a struggle out there. But for this, and in terms of loving people when you don't want to or feel like it, I was driving one day and there was just somebody on my mind at the time that I couldn't understand why they were doing certain things, or I couldn't understand why they couldn't get to a level that I saw them at. I saw this potential. I saw that they were capable of so many amazing things, and I had such faith in them. And when you have faith in somebody, or you have these expectations for them, that's your own. I mean, to be fair, it's not their fault. You're creating a false expectation, and when they let you down, so to speak, that was not their problem to begin with. They did not know that you had those expectations. Yeah. It's irritating when you see somebody who is extremely worthy and you know how amazing they can be, and they don't see it yet for themselves. But
they may never.
It's not our job. You just have to pray for them. And I remember I was frustrated because this person and I go way back. I've seen such great potential in them, and I knew the kind of person God was calling them to be. but they were frustrating me. And I was like, God, why can they not leave my head? I can't stop thinking about them. I need them to just leave my head. I don't want to worry about them anymore. It's their problem. And I heard God clear as day tell me, what if I did that to you? What if I just ignored you because you were pissing me off? And I know every single one of us that are living and breathing has made God upset or made God sad at some point. But because he's a loving God and he's a forgiving God, and because he died for us, all I saw was, oh my gosh, if I was not loved by Christ, even in the midst of the things that I've done in my life, I wouldn't be where I'm at. I honestly don't know why he's chosen me. I don't know why he loves me, but I love that he does. And so as I was thinking about this person, I went, okay, what do you want me to do instead? Instead of trying to get them to see their potential, trying to be their mitigator, and essentially trying to fix them, which that's not our job. God told me, he said, just pray for them. And that was the last thing I wanted to do. I was sitting there going, excuse me, no, because they've been rude to me, or they've been this to me, and they've treated me
piece
poorly.
of my mind.
Why do I have to pray for them? Why can't they pray? And God said, I didn't put them on your mind so that you could go and bug them. I put them on your mind because I'm not done with them yet. I still need somebody to pray for them, and you are going to be the person that I select to do this. And it's almost like we get into our selfish ways without being malicious. We get into our selfish ways of thinking, well, if I do this, how's it going to benefit me? We've all been there. But to some degree, we have to stop and think, this is God's using me to help somebody else because maybe they don't have somebody to do that in their life, or maybe because this is a way to get to them is by prayer, through our prayer. Even from the people that are quote unquote enemies, sometimes those are the most powerful, and we know that in scripture in Matthew is when he talks about that, love your enemies. And for me, I was driving that day, and I just remember I just said, okay, I don't want to, this is the last thing I want to do. So I was driving, and I did what he told me to do because I knew that he was right. This person, as much as I saw potential in them, and God knows that, he knew that in order to get through to this person, he needed more prayer. So I did. That was so hard for me that day, but I did. I prayed for this person. I prayed that God would reach out to them in a way that they would have more of it was more sanctified, and that it was more isolating. I prayed that this person came to Christ, not because they were forced to, but because they wanted to, and that they knew that there was no other way around this feeling. So I prayed this prayer that just took a lot of me to go, I'm finding it. But once I did, and I prayed for a person I did not want to, and I knew in my mind, I knew it had to take a lot for me to do that. I felt so at peace. I felt so happy, and I trusted that the Lord would use that prayer and do what he needed to do in this person. And I can't even tell you, I had not thought about him, I hadn't worried about him, but he started to figure out some things and work on his own life and do what he needed to do. Now he's getting into a men's Bible group, and that's obviously, I don't know what led him there, I have not followed up, but the meaning behind just that simple story, which some of you have a similar one, is just when we pray for the people that we don't want to pray for, or that the people that hurt us, the people that abused us, the people that basically makes our skin crawl, or the people that we think are so undeserving, I encourage people to look at it as step into the Christ-like shoes and think, when I've done wrong, when I've messed up, God loved me anyway. He still gave me another chance. So why does my sin, or why does that person's sin, why does it make it any greater than my sin, and why do they not deserve a prayer? Maybe somebody prayed for you and you didn't even know it, and that's what changed your life around.
No.
Maybe something happened in your life that you came to Christ somehow, some way, and it was somebody praying for you on the other end. So
what about when it's somebody that you can't get away from, that you have to see every single day? You can't just, 'cause there's a lot of times where if people aren't good for us, we just sort of cut ties and we don't want to be their friend anymore, which is fair. Like, you don't have to be friends with everybody.
You don't have to put yourself into a toxic situation or an abusive situation. No.
But what do you do when it's somebody that you have to see every day, or it's someone that you live with, or it's someone you're married to, or you just, and they're being impossible to love? Like, I think that's hard. Maybe it's a coworker. I can think of an instance where when I was still working as an attorney, there was someone that I worked with who just, our personalities could not have been more different, and we just, butted heads constantly because she was very, very bossy, and I do not like being bossed around. Like, I'm the eldest sibling, I do the bossing. Like,
Was it correction or bossing?
It was bossy, and I don't say that, I have thought about this. Because I had to do some self-reflection too. Like, I had to think, okay, hold on, Holly, is it really them or is it you? I was trying to be big, but this person just, they like, if you've ever been around somebody that just talks down to you or talks to you like you're stupid, that is one of the biggest ways to get under Holly's skin, is insult my intelligence, talk to me like I'm stupid. Like, that makes me so angry.
Do you think it's an insecurity because you were thinking that they don't believe that you are as qualified as you are? They're basically saying that you don't have what it takes, and it's more of like a watch this, I'll show you.
That very well could be. That could, like, potentially be an idol.
Because sometimes the things that people would say to me that irritated me, or quote unquote was a trigger, was actually me not addressing that was an insecurity. When people would say, well, Lacey, you're not quite there yet, or you need to be polished a little bit more. In my head, I thought, I've worked my butt off. I have put in hours, I've put in work, I have put in sleepless nights. But God was saying, it's not about that. How about you take it as, listen to them. They've been in the field longer, or they've been doing this longer. Maybe ask them, say, hey, what would be some advice? And once I did that, I started seeing improvements in my life that I didn't expect. It was almost not saying in your case, but in my case, I had to be humbled.
Yeah, and I'm trying to be fair and, like, play devil's advocate with myself. I can see how, I feel like this is going to sound so arrogant, but, like, my intelligence is something that if I'm not careful, I can make an idol. Because I know I'm intelligent, I know I'm smart, I know I can achieve all these scholastic career goals. So when someone is challenging that about me, it like bothers me. I'm like, how dare you question my intelligence? Like, it's almost a like arrogance and a pride thing.
Instead of saying, okay, what's a correction that you think I should make? Even if they are dead wrong, sometimes the most intelligent people accept correction and criticism, but instead of retaliating to show their chest and to buff up a little bit, instead they're going, okay, that's a great suggestion. What if we tried this? And they come back smarter. And sometimes the other person doesn't expect that type of calm. So they go, oh, okay, well, and then they put down their wall. Because we've all been there. We've all put up our defensive wall when someone questions our intelligence and our authority. And we've all been there. But same with God. Why do we question him when he tells us to do something? We wouldn't question it if God came down and said, hey, Holly, I really want you to work on A, B, C, X, Y, Z. You wouldn't question it. But because we know that God is not a person to be questioned.
That's kind of funny because I've never thought about it that way. The way I felt when she was questioning my authority on a matter is probably how God feels when we question him. Like, he's up there going, are you serious? I'm in charge here.
I'm trying to help you. Like this is why I've written it.
To give people, more detail about what I'm talking about, this person, I had made a legal decision on a matter. Like, I'm not going to get into details of that. It's, not classified. What do it? Classified. Yeah, lawyer-client confidentiality. Not classified. I'm not that cool. But yeah, it was something that I had made the call on. I had made an executive decision, made a legal decision, made a legal analysis about an issue, and said, this is the way we're going to do it. That's it. I'm in charge. Told my paralegal, told my staff, and we got on it. And this person calls me and, basically, why are you doing it this way? And I was like, first of all, Why are you questioning me? Like, there's my pride coming in. And then second of all, because I immediately got defensive. And she was like, well, okay, you're the attorney, I guess. You know, she had a very sarcastic tone, and that was like enough to set me off. And the reason I'm giving these details is because there's people like that you work with, I'm sure, that our listeners work with. Someone that just rubs you the wrong way, has the wrong tone. Yeah, you could live with them, you could work with them, and you have to see them every day. Yeah, and you have to see them every single day, and you have to deal with them every single day. There's no just getting away from them. And this was
so
just...
we're not saying that you and that woman had to be besties per se, no. But when we talk about loving someone, even when you don't want to, a lot of people say, well, love is a strong word. And that may be true because we love God and God calls us to love others. But also people, I think, and I myself included at one point, got this confused. Love is not just, oh, I love you so much because you are kind to me and you don't irritate me and you don't trigger something in me. Love is also a choice. You have to choose to like this person and to almost choose your joy and your peace over this person and allow God to move through them. But it sometimes with people like that, it takes God working through us to get to them because no other way has worked. And us as Christians, like you said, Christians, it's not easy. It's not easy being a Christian. It is not easy dying to yourself and taking up your cross. But if you're willing, God will lead you through it. You're not going to know. You're not going to sit there and be clueless to what's about to happen. But women like that, or men like that, people like that, if there's been viewers and listeners that have been in a sexually abusive relationship, they've had drug addiction, they've been in a family where they didn't have parents, or they grew up in a very dark side of town and they didn't have the upbringings that other people did. Whatever you may say, the cards are stacked against you, so to speak. And you just hate people and you have hatred in your heart and you don't want to love a certain person and you don't think they're deserving and you are just nit. That's when I say, not only do you need to pray for them, but you better pray for yourself, because you cannot love another person when you do not love who you are through Christ. If you don't love what he's created, you're never going to love what else he's created. Because as much as I may not have liked that one scenario where I had to pray for somebody I didn't want to, the minute I obeyed God and did what he asked me to do, there was a peace that came over me that you don't get from just like, taking a sip of wine. It was a piece of, this is now God's journey with this person. This is not my burden anymore. And not to say that they're a burden, but it wasn't my job to fix somebody that didn't come to Christ on their own. I had to be a beacon or a bridge. And I've seen this left and right, even at my job. You know that one person?
We've all got one. There's more to my story too, but we'll get into that in a minute.
Like Holly, I have someone I work with, which I probably shouldn't be, but like they get on my nerves. This one person, and it's impossible
to love everybody you work with. It's just
because we're, like she said, we're completely opposite, and we tend to only like the people that we're like-minded like. But the people that are opposite of you or have a difference of opinion of
this person was very opposite to me.
Have a different political view of you. And I know in this day and age with our world that we live in, politics it divides people for some reason. But that's why I think God calls us to love one another, because not because we're like-minded, but because we're so different. That's the hard part. The hard part as a Christian is, can you swallow your pride? Can you humble yourself and still love this person even when they've hurt you, when they've sexually abused you, when they've mistreated you, when they've hurt your feelings, when they've taken your job, when they've cheated on you, when someone doesn't respect your child or someone whatever the card is, can you still do as God called you to do and love them and pray for them, because he once did that for you through somebody else, and because he still loves them.
And I think when we say that you have to love these people, we're not saying that you have to like them, and we're not saying that they have to give you warm, fuzzy feelings when you think about them.
You don't have to invite them to the family dinner.
Loving them is more so the way you act towards them. It's a kindness that they don't deserve. It's a, I don't know how else to explain it. It's not saying you want to hug them and you want to be around them and you like them. You may despise them, but I think loving someone is choosing how to treat them a certain way. And
Well,
I
God
think
loved
anybody
us.
can do that.
I mean, it's perfect. It's just like you said. Jesus loved us enough to be in the most excruciating pain known to man. We did not deserve that. We were sinners.
Yeah.
We were awful. And he still loved us in spite of that, died for us, and allowed us to now live a life of free will to choose him. So he died knowing that even when he died, that doesn't mean everyone's still going to follow him. We have to choose. But he died knowing that. It's like that's what we're getting at, is it's a love like no other. It's an unconditional, selfless, relentless, loving God. And he's not saying that you have to tolerate certain people, but sometimes you are being used as a disciple in somebody else's life so that they know the love of Christ, so that they know what the love of Christ feels like and looks like through you, because you two are enemies. And if an enemy can look at you and go, wow, they're actually really kind to me, or wow, they're really nice, I didn't expect that, then eventually they're going to start to say, I wonder why. I want to get to know this person more. And then that leads to, how do I get closer to Christ like you? If we don't start doing that, and we keep our enemies at arm's length, and we keep them away, and we talk about them behind their back, that not only puts us down on their level, but it goes against what God calls us to do.
Well, and I'm a very, like, if there's someone like that I just grinds my gears, my reaction is avoidance. I just don't want to be around them. Like, I avoid them. Like this person, after I had made the call, it was my call. I was in charge of this legal thing. I made the call, said this is what we're doing, and I felt like it was sound legal reasoning, sound analysis, and it was. There was nothing wrong with it. But she questioned it in a way that felt just icky. I hated the way she came at me about it. And then once I said, nope, this is what we're doing, got off the phone with her, it wasn't 20 minutes later, I get a call from my boss. She didn't like what I had said, so she went over my head, called my boss, talked crap about me to my boss, and my boss called me to figure out what in the world was going on. And that just made it even worse.
So
and
what if God
I mean,
told you to still love her anyway?
He probably did, but for like several weeks, I would, this is so sad, y'all, but this is how petty us humans can get. Like,
We've all been there.
if I saw her get on the elevator, I would purposely take the stairs so I didn't have to be
I thought you were
around
going
her.
to say, if you saw her like getting to the elevator, you were like, close those
That
doors.
too.
were blocked.
I did everything to avoid this person. Thankfully, we worked on different floors in the building. But
You better have Dr. Scholl on.
I'm a grown, danged woman, y'all, and
It's easier. It's easier to give in to that anger and that just fear of like, this person pisses me off. I don't want to do anything about it. It literally, it gives into that anger, because some Christians, including us at times, we're more comfortable in our anger than we are in the peace of Jesus Christ.
Oh,
and a
yeah.
lot of people, including myself, you just want to stick it to them. And you're
Yeah.
like, you know what? They don't deserve my love. They don't deserve this. What if God said that to us?
And I think there's probably, if we truly get into the nitty gritty psychology of it, I was always the geek that got bullied. Like, I was the nerd. I got bullied. There was mean girls in my life.
Oh,
and
yeah,
so when
girls are mean.
Yeah, so
but
when
you weren't, like, bullied.
not in a sense that, like, nothing super traumatic.
But bullying can be in many different forms. It can be emotional. It can be physical. It can just be little snarky
being
comments.
excluded, being, whatever it looks like. So, I think there was a part of little Holly that's still in me, that when I encounter a bully in the workplace or a mean girl in the workplace, I kind of just run away.
It's that trigger.
It's that trigger. And I was just like trying to avoid her at all costs. Like, I wouldn't get on the same elevator. I would purposely, like, so sad. I would purposely, like, leave the building at different times so I wouldn't run into her.
Do you think any of that was stealing your peace rather than just praying?
Oh, it absolutely was. I was, like, anxious about it. I would, like, my whole day was planned around avoiding this woman. Like, how sad is that? I'm a grown woman.
Exactly.
Like, how sad is that? When I could have just checked myself a little sooner and been like, okay, what's really bothering you here? And what would God tell you to do about it?
Or do you think that maybe if at the time, because again, I've done that too, even worse. But
I can't be the only one.
No, we've all done it because it's easier. But what if we had thought, man, what if she's having a really crappy life right now? What if her world is falling apart and she just, thought to take it out on you even though she shouldn't have? What if you went to her instead and tried to get to know her and befriend her? Do you think that would have changed things?
I think I did a little bit of that. I've resigned since then, not because of her, just, because
I couldn't stand being around that.
No. And to be fair, my boss had my back. Like there was nothing bad happened. My decision was eventually respected. Everything blew over. It wasn't a big deal. But I mean, that was just one instance of what it was like having to work with this person. And there were multiple instances. And I kind of started to do what you've been doing. I started to kind of purposely get on the elevator with her, start asking her questions about her life. And like you said, the more I learned about her life, I was like, man, she got a lot going on. So that day probably had nothing to do with me. But I spent weeks ruminating over it.
Like I always say, never contribute to malice what can be contributed to incompetence. And a lot of times when I was learning and growing, and I was always mad that other people were so annoying. I was like, God, you're just like, can you just stop talking? Like, we have those people where they just talk and you're like, man, that did not go through the old noodle. But at the same time, I had to humble myself and my pride, and God checked me quick. And he goes, hold on, why are you just assuming that they're attacking you instead of you being kind? And I want you to ask them how their day was. And I didn't want to because
I don't care.
They'd ramble on for another 45 minutes. And I was like, my gosh. And God just said, do it. He talked to me so loudly on many occasions when I did not want to talk to a certain person. And once I did, I realized, wow, this was a God moment. You needed me to talk to them and they needed to talk to me. I needed to hear their side of things. And most of those people now, still good friends. We still talk to, we still see at church. It's one of those things where we have to be willing to stop putting ourselves on this just arrogant, prideful pedestal and knock down a few notches and say, okay, I didn't deserve this kind of love. God gave it to me anyway. Choose to be kind even when somebody has slapped you on the cheek. Choose to be kind every single day. Even if you are in the worst mood of your life and you're exhausted, or you're a parent and the exhaustion is to 100. I get it. She gets it. But what does it do? What good does it do when you are constantly angry or constantly avoiding somebody and you're constantly upset? That's not giving in to the joy that God gave you. God said, no, go and make disciples, go and love one another. So how does that help? How does avoiding each other and not praying for each other, it just makes everybody more miserable.
Well,
and we're already in a world where, look at our politics, look at our children, look at how this world is going. But the more that we come together and the more Christians that work together to pray for one another, even when we don't feel like it, or even when we think they're not deserving, quote unquote, that's when I think we will start to see the love of God being spread, is doing the things we don't want to do because why? They're hard.
Well, and I think for me, I'm never not kind. I hate conflict, so I'm always kind, even if internally I'm seething about something. That's just the way we were raised. I was taught to be kind. Even if I'm just boiling inside, I'm kind externally. But I had to look at it too and be like, why am I so angry? Why is this bothering me so bad? And I think I felt like she got away with it. Like, she treated me like crap and she got away with it.
Why is my life worse than theirs? Like, they don't deserve it.
And not so much even like, did she deserve my kindness? It was like, she got away with being like that to me. And
I don't. And I'm a good person and I'm kind.
Like, I wanted to be vindicated. Like, my sense of injustice was going off. Like, I'm a lawyer, right? I love justice. I love fairness. And it felt unfair. I felt like justice hadn't been served. I didn't feel vindicated. But that's where God literally said in the Bible, like, I will repay. Like, I am your vindicator. I will take care of them.
He's the judge and jury.
Yeah.
He is the one that gets to do it. But the thing is even at that time when you were saying, oh my gosh, like, why is this fair? How is this fair? How is it fair when they crucified Christ.
There's nothing about
It's
it.
not fair.
No.
And I think a lot of people I would say, biggest word I can think of on this podcast about loving other people when you don't want to, my biggest word that comes to mind is humble yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you don't want to love somebody because they don't deserve it or whatever your reasoning is, okay, well then think about it as if God did that to you.
Well, and like you were saying earlier, okay, well, it helps to love that person if you dig deep and ask yourself, what is it triggering in you? Yeah. Like you were asking, like, hey, you know, why does it bother you when someone insults your intelligence? Do you put your intelligence too high? Or do you think too highly of yourself? Because the Bible says you should not think more highly of yourself than you ought to. That's not saying you have to think badly about yourself, but don't think too highly of yourself.
God wants you to absolutely love yourself, but he's not calling you to absolutely just be arrogant within yourself. Yeah. And I think when you dig deep and you self-reflect on, why is this really bothering me? And when you really open up that nutshell, you're going to probably see some things you don't want to see, but the sooner you deal with it, the less those enemies, quote unquote, for those of you listening, the more that your enemies will no longer trigger you or hurt you. Instead, you will immediately think when somebody insults you or somebody says something to you that isn't kind, your brain is going to automatically think, how am I supposed to pray for them? God, they need it. What do I need to do? You're no longer going to go to, oh, that bee, or oh my gosh, how dare they challenge my intelligence? How dare they? Instead, it's now going to be, wow, you're hurting. How can I help you? Why are you hurting? And when I shifted that mindset, people at my job, people in real life, boys, you know, the dating world, whatever happens and it seems to hit me and I get a little bit, my feelings hurt, I then ask myself, wait, did it hurt my feelings or did it trigger a sense of pride that was challenged? Did they just challenge my ego? Did they just challenge my pride? And that's when God says, lower your ego, lower your pride. What have I called you to do? Yeah, for sure. And I think it helps to, when you're trying to love someone that's hard to love, is like, and this person may have no good justification for the way they're acting. There may be nothing going on in their life that would justify their attitude. They're just flat out mean. But I think it helped me, like when I was sitting there feeling like I had been dealt a really bad card, it helped me to know God's my vindicator. Yeah. He will take care of her. I do not have to fight every battle for myself. Like he will fight the battle for me. He will take care of her. He knows what's going on with her. I don't have to, because I mean, that's my innate, you know, nature, right? That's why I became a lawyer. I like to fight for people. I like to be that voice for people. I like to stand up for people, and you know that's what I do. That's my whole career. You can still use that. You can still be a vindicator. You can still be a voice for people, but you can be that the way God tells you to in that moment. Yeah. So allowing God to work through you by praying for them and loving them, even when they did you dirty. No matter what the situation or the case, just like what you said, even though you have that innate desire to fix things, to people please, to change, to help, what if you can change that by using God's word and using how he's changed you, and then therefore they see God through you and they go, wow, I want to be like that, and then therefore you've planted a seed. Yeah, and if nothing else, y'all, the way you react and the way you behave has an impact on your reputation. Like if I because of the way I handled myself, despite how I felt, if I see this person out and about around town, there's no issue because I didn't do anything badly. I held it in, thank goodness. And I eventually was able to be on an elevator with this person again. But like I managed to keep my cool long enough to where she can never say anything bad about me because I didn't give her a foothold. Even if she did though, who cares? Like if someone's gonna talk bad about you or say something that's untrue or talk about you in a way that's not, that's basically a straight up lie and it's not glorifying God, again, still pray for them, still love them, because eventually their time will come. And it's the last thing you want to do. What are you praying for? Just practically speaking, like what does that prayer look like? And I don't mean to put you totally on the spot, but like if I'm sitting there seething about this person, I'm like, man, she did me dirty. What do I like?
Like, what nice thing can I pray about? Like,
you
I
know,
just...
firsthand with one of our extended family members. I'll bring that up. Like, we have, not everybody has a perfect family life, and I think
Nobody does.
the majority of our listeners would agree. You could have extended family members that get under your skin like no other.
Mm-hmm.
But even though they've done wrong, and even though they've done things that aren't the way that Christ would have wanted us to go about loving each other, and in that instance, I still wanted to pray for them when they were either coming to visit or when we hear stories about what has been said about us because of the way we live our life. I prayed for them even when I didn't want to, because to me, I see that they're hurting. Something is bothering them, something is upsetting them, and to be fair and to be honest, it's not me. It's not you, and even if it is, then I pray that God helps me adjust my heart and my mind to be more like Him, not to adjust to them, to adjust to be more like Him so that I can help them when He calls me to, not forcefully. So when I did pray for them, it was actually a very good outing. We all had a great time, no issues. But it's hard because then people say, well, I just get so anxious. I get so stressed out. I get shaky. I get nauseous. We're not saying to put yourself in a situation that causes harm or self-harm or any type of abuse. I know Joyce Myers had to go through what she went through with her dad sexually abusing her when she was growing up. And then he got saved at 82 years old because she never stopped praying for him. She never stopped. She said God continually told her to check on him, to love him, to call him, and she hated that. I mean, can you imagine? She hated that, but she did it anyway, and she talked about the reason she did it was because he was living in a darkness that nobody else would bring him out of. And no matter how much God tried to reach him, it just had to be through her.
And it's interesting you bring her up because it just triggered a memory of one of her sermons where she talked about this answers my own question, how you pray for people like that. And she said one of the things you do is you pray for God to bless them. And that sounds crazy, right? Like, I don't want them to have any blessings. Like, I can't stand the person. But she's saying sometimes a blessing from God is what's the word I'm looking for? Is a conviction, or like a blessing can be in the form of God's tough love on them, or convicting them and making them realize what they've done is wrong. That can be a blessing.
It can be a repentance. They can finally realize that, wow, that person loved me even when I hurt them, even when I did something so despicable to them. That person still loved me. What kind of love is that? When they start to question what kind of love is that, that is the ultimate seed that God has asked us as Christians to plant. We're not called to force people. We're called to be kind. We're called to love, because it's hard to do. It is hard to do, especially in this world. But the more we practice it and the more we get into a routine with it and we let it become us, that's when things don't trigger us anymore. Things don't upset us anymore. We can just be a bridge to help somebody who's in pain or somebody who's hurting. And most of the time when people are rude like that, they're just hurting. They're in pain, and it has nothing to do with you. But if we can just be that bridge, they might want to walk across it on their own because they want to be just like us, or they want to be just like whatever it is that God is feeding through you.
Yeah. And I know everyone listening is got a certain person in mind. When we're talking about this, or people, plural, and sometimes a person can just be rotten, and they may never change till the day they die. But that doesn't mean
you have to be rotten on top.
Yeah, like it doesn't mean you're not still supposed to do what God's called you to do.
Just because they're doing something so rotten. Look at it this way. Whether you think it is absolutely inexcusable, jail time, gross, just whatever vernacular you want to use to describe it.
There may be no excuse for what they did.
Absolutely. But I would rather know that I have a God that lives through me and shines through me and allows me to love even when it's hard than ever act like them just to get my revenge. Because nothing will ever justify wanting revenge on somebody, as bad and disgusting as whatever happened. Nothing is worth that revenge. When you have the love of Christ, it's never worth it.
He's your vindicator. Like our mom used to say, God sees everything and God doesn't like ugly. That's what she always told us. God doesn't like ugly. He sees what these people have done to you, and he's
But he
not going to
doesn't
let
want
it slide.
you. He doesn't want you to turn ugly. He doesn't want you to turn
No.
the way that they are treating you. He wants you to be their wake-up call. Sometimes you are their wake-up call because nobody's been nice to them. The world has been unkind to them. But the only way to reach them is through somebody who they wanted to hurt. They wanted to make fun of you. They wanted to sexually abuse you. They wanted to be sick human beings. But the only way God can reach through them is if they see the light through you.
Mm-hmm. And even if they never do, like, it's more like loving others that you don't want to love is more about you trying to be more like Christ than it is about whether or not they change. They may never change. That was so hard. Sometimes it's impossible.
It is impossible, but the more that you are like the devil, the easier it gets. So choose your heart. Would you rather go through life living in the anger, living in the bitter, the resentment, the guilt, the shame, and being miserable, being a straight up miserable human being, because that's where the devil wants you? Or would you rather live through Christ knowing that you can practice self-control, you can practice forgiving others, you can practice being kind, and watch him change your world from darkness to light, even when it's hard? I mean, that's a clear answer. Because even the easy path is still getting you to destruction.
And you may never see justice this side of heaven. Like, this person may never get what's coming to them here on earth. But I promise you, my brother said this to me once, and it was like, oh, duh. Because I was struggling with something. And he said, well, Holly, we're not living for this life. Like, you have to have an eternity mindset. Everything we do and say and how we act, and we have to live for eternity. So, like, even if you never get justice, even if you never see this person get what they truly deserve on earth, I promise you in eternity, it matters. Like, God sees all. He is your vindicator. He is the ultimate judge.
Living on this planet is the closest thing to hell as believers will ever get. And this is your test. If you cannot pass these little things that he's calling you to do, why would you be welcomed into the kingdom of heaven? Like, that's just, there's a million other things too that go along with it. But I say loving, we wanted to talk about the loving others because also it's the month of love and we're in February.
It is.
But I wanted to read some scripture. I have my notes here just so that you know where to go to if you want to meditate on the word. The first one, excuse me, is Matthew 5:44. But I say to you, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you. This verse directly instructs Christians to show love to those who may be difficult or hostile to work with. Another one is Luke 6, verse 27 through 31. But I say to you who hear, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you. Pray for those who abuse you. To one who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from one who takes away your cloak, do not withhold your tunic either. Leviticus 19:18. Do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against anyone among your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. 1 John 4, verse 8. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. So like we were saying,
that's harsh. If you don't love, you don't know God.
Love is a choice. Even when these feelings are not reciprocated, choosing to act with love towards others aligns with God's teachings. So that's when we were saying earlier that God's and Christ's love and the way that he demonstrated his love for us and for humanity when we were not deserving, not even in the slightest, that should model our own actions. We should try to be like that. And just like in 1 John, if you do not love others, then like whoever does not love does not know Christ, because Christ's love is endless. He didn't have to forgive us for all the things that we've done, but he does it without a blink. And don't
give the enemy a foothold, y'all. One of the quickest ways he can get hold. Don't let him in. Don't let him have that foothold. I mean, bitterness, resentment, hatred, all of that is an easy open door for the devil to start doing his thing.
Because the devil plays on our emotions.
And he plays mind games for sure.
Humans are imperfect, emotional, complicated beings. And he knows exactly how to play with us, and he plays in our mind. So a lot of that time was also the inner self, and also digging into yourself and asking yourself, why does this bother me? Why is this hurting me? And when you practice loving the way God would love you, you'll start to see yourself transform. And sometimes not only are you being called to help others, but others are being used in your life. So loving others is not fun. It's not easy all the time, especially for the ones you don't want to. But the reward and the type of peace you feel once you do, it's almost like a repentance, and it's a release like no other. You just have a wonderful sense of you, and all you have now is I pray that God sends them something that helps them out of the pain they're dealing with. If you start looking at it as they're in pain, not, oh, they hurt me, they're meanie heads, that's when perspective.
Well, and I probably don't have, this probably goes without saying, but you never have to be anybody's doormat, and you never have to allow anybody to abuse you or mistreat you. That is not what we're saying. Like, if you are in a situation where someone is abusing you, mistreating you, absolutely get out of that situation if at all possible. Like, we're not saying you just have to let people treat you like utter crap. Like, or if you're, for God forbid, in an abusive relationship, please get out of that. Really, like, we're not talking about extreme things like that, but we're just
saying, don't allow that type of pain that somebody else has inflicted on you. Do not allow that to set a seed in your heart and grow, because that type of pain is very hard to get rid of.
Look at the situation with this coworker. It affected me for weeks. I was altering my entire schedule and my entire life to avoid this person. Like that. It's so absurd.
Don't let bitterness and anger and pain take hold of your heart.
Yeah.
Because that is the hardest thing to switch. But when you start, even if you already are there and you're like, oh my gosh, but I'm already bitter, I'm always angry, Lacey, I'm always this. Okay, what a great improvement. You're self-recognizing. You're able to say, hey, I need to change this. Start with, instead of people that come at you and they hurt you, instead take a second to think. Take a second to say, hey, what is really bothering me about this? Or just flat out shock them with kindness.
Yeah.
When you throw it back to them, they're not going to expect that. And that might change everything from there on out. You don't know.
Yeah, and that's the bottom line. You don't know someone's heart. Only God does.
What's that Celine Dion song, Power of Love? Is that what it's called? Whisper in the morning.
I don't know. I'm thinking of the one from Back to the Future. It's the Power of Love. That's an old 80s song.
Oh, well, I'm just thinking of Celine Dion. There's one, maybe y'all know it, but yeah, like, just do what's...
This is a hard topic. It's
very hard. We're not saying it's not, and we're not saying...
Because it's not logical in the way we think about things.
It goes against your emotions.
Yeah, like
you have to self-regulate, and you have to get control of your emotions. And a lot of people aren't willing to do that. God
is a very, very good defense attorney. He will fight for you. I have to remind myself of that. Like, I don't have to fight my own battles all the time. Like, God will fight for me.
Constantly holding on to bitterness and anger and hate. How exhausting is that?
I try to imagine that about myself when I'm feeling like I have been treated wrong and I'm wanting justice. I try to picture, like, just because this is what I do, I try to picture myself as the client sitting in the courtroom. Jesus is my defense attorney, and God's the judge sitting up there. I'm good. If Jesus has got my back and God's the ultimate judge, I'm good.
And let's say you're on the flip side and you are the person that's done wrong, or you are the person that's caused a lot of pain in other people's lives because you were hurt and you let that pain ruminate.
Good point.
You're never too far gone to turn that around.
No.
Let me be clear. You can easily start praying and asking God to change your heart and change your mind. And I promise you, He does it. He might not do it as quick as you want, or He does it sometimes like quick like a Band-Aid. But either way He chooses to work through you, it's going to take an every single day battle. You are going to fight certain situations in your own head, in your own mind. But the more you practice it, just like a muscle, the more you work it out, the stronger it gets. It's as old as time. You cannot get better and you cannot change habits until you start to change your thinking and your mindset.
And we're all guilty of that.
You're on the other end and you're causing the harm and you're causing the pain and you're causing the drama or the issues. You're not too far gone either.
Nope.
You can turn it around as well, and you can still love your enemies and you can still love everyone else, but you have to love yourself first.
And you got to put your pride down. Like, if you're married and you know darn good and well you said something to your spouse yesterday you shouldn't have, you got to put your pride down and you got to go apologize and ask for their forgiveness. I mean, that's a daily discipline in a marriage. I'm telling you, when you have to live under the same roof with somebody, whether it's a roommate, a spouse, whatever, you are going to butt heads. I promise. And you got to be willing to.
It's not about who's right and who's wrong. It's about how can we together fix this together as a couple, not just one against the other.
Yeah. I hope this has been helpful, y'all. I kind of had to I had thought about this situation. I hadn't thought about it in a long time, and this kind of helped me think about it in a different way, because obviously here we are months and months and months after this whole thing happened, and I still remember it, which, man, that's tough, is the choosing to like let it go part. You know, why does it still bother me? Why do I still talk about it?
Because it's easy to get back into those dark thoughts. But
anger's comfortable.
The sooner you give it to Christ, the sooner he can work with it.
Yeah. Anger is, like you said, it's comfortable to be angry. It's not comfortable to let it go and let God.
When you find comfort in God, the anger is no longer what you want. You don't even care to fight it.
No. And I wish this person well. Hope she's doing good. I really don't, I don't think about it much anymore, other than bringing it up for this illustration purposes. And this person in your life that you talked about, they might still be the same rotten person that they were back when they were irritating you.
It's not on my time frame. We just have to continue to have faith that God will move in them. But you can't do that unless you pray.
Nope, you can't.
Hopefully this helped. Hopefully it wasn't a ring around the rosy, but that's the honest way I think we can take away with how to help people, is to pray for them to be more like God and more self-reflect into why it's bothering you. But hopefully this gave y'all some sense of peace and how to handle something that's going on in your life. We pray that you go to God yourself and try to ask him to help you through it. You're never too far gone if you're on the other side. And maybe this gave you a sense of clarity, or maybe this was your sign, so to speak.
God will fight for you, even if it's totally unfair and you've done all you can and you've been kind and they're still being awful. God's got it. He's got your back. He's going to fight your battle. Just get out of his way and let him do it.
And stay tuned for March episodes. We're going to have some great ones as well. We're going to post some more teasers and more fun videos. Follow us on all the platforms. Rate us. You know how it goes. But we appreciate you guys tuning in and listening.
Yeah.
We'll see y'all in episode 3.
See y'all then.